Okay. Well, welcome to our analysis of the DEXEL International GCSE English papers. And of course, today our focus and emphasis is English B. And this is an analysis that will be quite important and useful to any student or a candidate preparing for this paper. First and foremost, first things first, it's imperative that a student actually understands the paper reference, or what we call the paper code. So English B, and the paper code is 4EB1/01. 4EB1/01. Of course, there's also what we call English language A, of which we shall be talking about it in another platform at another time. But for today, as I said, our focal point is actually centered on English B. It is good to know, apart from the code, it's also good to know the structure of the paper. This paper is actually tailored in such a way that it has 3 sections. It has actually 3 sections. We have section A, we have section B, and we have section C. Of course, you can also find this under the instruction panel or the instruction point, whereby the examiner instructs the candidate on what to do. So amongst the bullet points, you'll also have what to do, like what to do in terms of section A, what to do in terms of section B, and also what to do in terms of section C. In section A, we have questions that will be drawn from passages. And talking about passages, we'll have 2 passages that you'll be given or you find in this paper. We also have section B, which we'll call it directed writing, because you'll do writing based on what you've been directed to do, of course, with close reference to the passages that you'll be given. And of course, finally, to wind it up in this section C, we have the composition bit. And of course, we have the conventional 3 types of compositions that we shall also be talking about in this paper. Now, the total mark for this paper is 100 marks. Yes, it's 100 marks. So, and of course, the marks for each questions are always actually included in some in brackets. They are always put in brackets, and this should guide a student or a candidate on how or what weight to put in each and every question that is set. Moving on, I'd like to say that in this paper, what are actually demands of section A, and how does section A of this paper look like? So, for example, our reference paper is the 2021 May-June paper May-June paper in the year 2021. That's our reference paper that we shall use for the purposes of this discussion, for the purposes of this interaction. We shall have our reference paper. We're referring to the paper that was done in the year 2021 May-June. And of course, we have those conventional instructions. For example, like read text 1 in the extracts booklet, adapted from a piece of travel writing called Into the Hearts of Darkness. So that was the instructions as per section A. So, of course, you are always given an extract booklet, and this extract booklet has the passages that you are supposed to refer to when you are dealing and handling this question. So you should be able to read, and of course, there's also another writing that you shall also refer to. Then, you'll also be able to read text 2 in the extra booklet, adapted from a blog called Things I Tell Any New Traveler. Things I Tell Any Traveler. Now, before I start going into the nitty-gritties of actually deconstructing the questions here, what you should know is that the passages are always linked by theme. They are thematically linked. So if this is talking about traveling, so be sure and be informed that both passages will be talking about issues of traveling or visiting places or something like that. But of course, the presentations or the genres or the presentations or genre of presentation could differ. So the passages, they are not like actually distanced miles apart. They are actually linked by the theme. So if you have the passages that you're given by the examiner, they're always actually conjoined with, talking the same topic, but of course presented quite differently for the purposes that we shall be able to appreciate as we go along together. There's one thing that I wanted now to tell you, that in the reading section, section A, if I may take you to section A, the reading section, we have questions that are actually divided, or I can actually demarcate or differentiate these questions into two broad forms. So one, there are questions that require shorter responses. There are questions that require shorter responses. And of course, we have questions that require longer responses. Now, questions that require shorter responses, I'll call them explicit questions. They are so explicit, they are so superficial, they are so, you get the ideas from, once you read, you just have at a glance, you may be able to answer the questions as actually required. So these are explicit questions that, you may be asked to attend to. And of course, even the mark indicated, the demand of the question is not so much tedious, it's not so much taxing, so much Herculean. The demands are not so much in depth, and therefore it just requires one student, it just requires a candidate to be actually keen enough to be able to draw what is needed from as such. Now, if I look at an example of an explicit sort of question, we go to like question 1 of the paper reference that we are using today, and that is the paper for 2021 English B. So it says, using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. So this is on the assumption that you've already gone through the extract booklet, yeah? Using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. Give one reason. So characteristics of an explicit type of a question is, like give one reason, state one reason, identify one reason. So, and of course, you are guided onto a specific paragraph. So using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. So having done that, you go using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. Some of the notable answers, if of course having read the extract booklet, some will be, it seems like a good idea at that time. It seemed like a good idea at that time. Another point could be, he is stuck in an unpleasant office. Another one could be, he wants to be refreshed by the excitement of travel. Yeah, so if you're asked to give one reason, please stick to that one reason, because we are not going to do this paper to infinity. This paper is timed, and therefore, for students and candidates who are so much ambitious, if I may use that term, please just stick to that so that you save time. So give one, settle onto one response that you feel is arguably the best, and of course you move to the next question. So that is an example of an explicit type of question. Now, if I may give you an example of another type of questions or question that I'll call implicit, and then let me move to question number could be 3 or Let me see question number 3. Yes, question number 3. What does it say? Yeah, it says, explain how the writer described the trip to the Bolivian rainforest. Then it says you should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotations. So explain how the writer describes his trip to the Bolivian rainforest. You should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotation. And of course, the mark allocated here is actually 10 marks. So you clearly can see there's a great departure from the way this question is actually even structured vis-a-vis the way the previous questions that we looked at, that is question number 1. So explain how the writer described his trip, the Bolivian rainforest, and then of course you're told you should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotations. Now what I should say here is that writers use words, and of course they embed a certain structure in the way they do their things. So in this type of questions, it will be testing, a student's insight and inference as far as language use is concerned, about the structural uses is concerned. So there's quite a lot that's actually involved here. And this is where, I would say the rubber meets the road, whereby your acumen and of course, as a student of language is actually tested and stretched completely. So this is an implicit type of question, and it also demands a lot of effort from you as a student. Now, just allow me to take you back a bit. Therefore, we have how many questions in section A? We have about 7 questions. Yeah. We have about 7 questions in section A, if I'm not wrong. So we have about 7 questions. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, question 6, question 7. Let me see if we have question 8. There we go. There we go. I need to check whether we have question number 8. And if there's question number 8, yes. Yeah, there's question number 8. So there's question number 8. And yeah, question number 8 is actually there. Question number 7 is also there. Number 7 is there. I'm trying to confirm question number 8. Question number 8. Yeah, question number 8 is, yeah. Now, it's true we don't have question number 8 in section A. We have question number 1 up to question number 7. Now, in terms of the demands of this question, so and how, where, from which point they are drawn. So question number 1 is an explicit type of question. Question number 2 is an explicit type of question. Question number 4, remember I've skipped question number 3. Question number 4 is an explicit type of question. Then question number 5 is an explicit type of question. Then question number 6 is an implicit type of question, and question number 7 is also an implicit type of question. So question number 1 is drawn from passage 1. Question number 2 is drawn from passage 2 from the extract booklet that will be given. Question number 4 is drawn from the extract booklet that is passage 2 or passage B. Question number 5 is also drawn from the extract booklet passage 2 or passage B, depending on how they are actually annotated or given for identification. So I have question number 1 will demand answers and responses that are short in nature. We have question number 2 that also demand answers that, clearly you are directed onto a certain paragraph, and then, or a passage, so much direct. So let me take you back. So for example, now question number 1, let me deal with now the question number 1, question number 2 in the section A. Of course, this question being drawn or being formulated from passage 1. So using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. So this is like an icebreaker. It's like a warm-up for you, and Of course, this is a question that students should get it right. So using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. So you go to the first paragraph on the the extract booklet. Our extract booklet, yes, gonna show you just in a while. Yes, there we go. There we go. Yes, there we go. Passage, yes. So text one, Into the Heart of Darkness, adapted from a piece of travel writing by Ben Malaliu. So in this passage, the writer recounts a journey he made to the Bolivian rainforest in South America. Then it goes, paragraph 1, it says, it wasn't a good journey. It was never going to be a good journey, but it must have seemed like a good idea at the time, as most bad ideas do, particularly when stuck in an unpleasant office and wanting to be somewhere else, anywhere else. I had put forward an idea for a travel article for a magazine about seeing how far I could get into the wilds and be back at my desk 7 days later, all bright and eager, refreshed by the excitement of travel. I should have known better. So that's our first, clearly you can see that, okay, this is our first paragraph. First paragraph is there. Yes, this is our first paragraph here. So we have to draw our response from here. Let's just for highlight. So this is yes. Okay, fine. Looks clumsy a bit, but first that's the highlight of our first paragraph. We're gonna fish our response. So it wasn't a good journey. It was never going to be a good journey, but it must have seemed like a good idea at the time, as most bad ideas do, particularly when stuck in an unpleasant office and wanting to be somewhere else, anywhere else. I had put forward an idea for a travel article for a magazine about seeing how far I could get into the wilds and be back at my desk 7 days later, all bright and eager, refreshed by the excitement of travel. I should have known better. Yes, so go back to question using the first paragraph, give one reason the writer wants to go on a journey. Yes, so based on that, it seems like a good idea at that time. He's stuck in an unpleasant office. He wants to be refreshed by the excitement of travel. So any of those will suffice and give you a good mark. Yeah, to suffice for that type of question. Then question number 2 is another example of an explicit sort of type of question. It says, using line 25-29, state one of the problems the writer encountered. So one thing with them, this explicit type of question in this paper, sometimes you are guided, you are actually channeled towards specific bunch of lines, specific group of lines. So here, in question number 2, you are told using lines 25-29, state one of the problems the writer encountered. So, of course, as I said, refer to that line 25-29 on the extract booklet, 25-29 extract booklet, and there we go. If I may just use our highlighter to indicate 25-29. Okay, here we go. This is line from here. This is line 25-29. Just a minute. There it goes. It's line 25-29. I've put some sort of a line there. Line 29. It starts from this point over here and ends right there. Good. Okay. If peradventure you'd forgotten about the questions, it's always imperative that you go back to the questions. Using line 25-29, state one of the problems the writer encountered. And then we go there. There we go. I'd booked a taxi from 6 a.m. My hotel was Impenetrably dark. I couldn't find any light, switches, and in my hurry to park before leaving England, I'd forgotten to include a torch. Outside there was no sign of my taxi, and it was getting dangerously late. So I waved down the taxi. Sorry, I waved down the first taxi that came. Unfortunately, the driver had no English, but when I showed him my airline ticket, probably the wrong one, he seemed to understand. Yes, so what was the question again? Yes, no harm going back using the lines of advice. So state one of the problem. So here is another explicit type of questions, and you're told just to state one of the problems. So here the examiner is very much aware and is very much alert to the fact that in that group of lines, that is 25, 29, you are bound to find very many problems as enumerated or elucidated in there. But you see, your task here, your job here, just to find one, and then of course for a 1 mark, as you can see, the mark there is 1 mark. So amongst the problems he encountered, he couldn't find any light switches. That's a point. He had forgotten to pack a torch. That's also another point. It was getting late. That's another point. The driver did not speak English. It was impenetrably dark. That's another point. There was no sign of his taxi. That's also another point. So as I said earlier on, don't be over-ambitious, because your ambition could actually cost you a lot of time, and therefore stick to whatever the demand of the, as instructed, just give us 1 mark, and therefore we move. So we are moving on, trying to, looking at the explicit type of question. Now, at question 1 and 2, we come to the end of explicit questions, the questions that demand very short directed answers, and of course you can see those explicit questions are actually drawn from passage 1 or text 1 from the resource booklet that you'll be furnished with or supplied with in your examination. So I say these discussions are good for any student who is enthusiastic about English, and even particularly for those students who are preparing for their IGCSE English B. Of course, even English A, of course, English A, they can also benefit from this, discussion. Now, you move to question number 3. Explain how the writer described his trip to the Bolivian rainforest. Yes, so when you're told to explain now, here you move from the domain of being very simplistic to giving us, your points, to actually justifying, giving examples, and also justifying why you have used the very examples and the points that you've given us. So it is a three-pronged attack, the way you attack this question. Give us the points, give us the language structure, the technical devices that have been used, and of course, you can highlight and give us the reason as to why you have chosen what you have chosen to be able to address this question. So explain how the writer described his trip to the Bolivian rainforest. Now, we go back to our source text. Let me just clear this. Yes, let me just clear that. Yeah, there you go. There you go, and delete. So our text is clean now, and therefore, for you to be able to appreciate and to tackle this question well, now you don't need to read it piecemeal. You must be able to understand the text in its entirety. It wasn't a good journey. It was never going to be a good journey, but it must have been seemed like a good idea at the time, as most bad ideas do, particularly when stuck in an unpleasant office and wanting to be somewhere else, anywhere else. I'd put forward an idea for a travel article for a magazine about seeing how far I could get into the wilds, and be back at my desk 7 days later, all bright and eager, refreshed by the excitement of travel. I should have known better. So go on. As my final jumping off place into the heart of darkness, I'd chosen Rurabanacu in the Bolivian rainforest. Yes, what a name. For no better reason that it's one of those wonderful romantic places, names like Zanzibar or Timbuktu. It was also the starting point for some of the better journeys of the early 20th century explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett. He memorably described it as a dismal heap on the way into the jungle and a city on the way out. From there, I could take a dugout canoe upriver. But Fawcett is not a good role model, not someone in whose footsteps it is wise to tread if you intend to get back into one piece. He disappeared in Brazil in 1925. Furthermore, I had left planning my journey much too late, and even getting to the Bolivian capital of La Paz required zigzagging between a disturbingly large number of South American airports, all identical except for being in a different time zone. Eventually, I arrived in La Paz at 4,000 meters above sea level in the middle of a hot, humid, and very black night. Fawcett was an intemperate traveler, never happier than when reduced to eating his own boots or when one false step would spell certain ruin. And he hardly had a day's illness in his life, but he did warn about altitude sickness in La Paz, as well as causing almost total weakness and incapacity. Altitude sickness has all the disadvantages of being drunk with none of the benefits: headache, nausea, disorientation. In the morning, I got up too early. I'd booked a taxi from 6 a.m. My hotel was impenetrably dark. I couldn't find any light switches, and in my hurry to pack before leaving England, I'd forgotten to include a torch. Outside there was no sign of my taxi, and it was getting dangerously late. So I waved down the first taxi, the first taxi that came. So I waved down the first taxi that came. Unfortunately, the driver had no English, but when I showed him my airline ticket, probably the wrong one, he seemed to understand. The airport he took me to was not the one I had arrived at the day before. It was much smaller and practically deserted. None of the officials spoke any English, but my taxi driver explained the situation. I think there was sudden panic, and two of the officials rushed out to flag down an ancient turboprop military plane taxiing on the runway ready to depart. And I was bundled on board without having my ticket checked. An aging Air Force officer offered me some cotton wool to put in my ears and a mug of industrial strength coffee. We dipped and swapped between the mountains of over cold, beautiful valleys, where plains like ours have history of finding the final place. We dipped and swapped between the mountains over cold, beautiful valleys, where plains like ours have a history of finding their final resting place. An hour later, we landed on a bumpy grass airstrip surrounded by jungle, a very long way from Heathrow, but only a brief truck ride into town. Rurrenabaque had hardly changed from the photograph in Fawcett's book. Only one paved road and just a few brick buildings among the old shacks. A damp yes, but dismal no. I felt very relieved to be there. I also enjoyed the trip upriver, but I did not like the rainforest. Too in your face, in your hair, in your clothes, and under your skin. And I didn't have a torch. It was a relief 3 days later to get back to Rurrenabaque, where the bright lights dazzles just like a city. At the jungle bar mosquito, people almost outnumbered the mosquitoes. My flight back to La Paz was better than I feared. Arriving in the early hours at another deserted airport, where the first person I saw was my original taxi driver. He seemed almost as pleased to see me as I was to see him. But what he was doing there, I never discovered, as he didn't speak any English. So, well, it's always advisable to read the text at least 2 times. And of course, on the third time, you read as you address the answer. So moving back to our question, explain how the writer described his trip to the Bolivian rainforest. You should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including a brief quotation. So the descriptive prose here is actually brought to discussion. So we can see amongst some of the notable answers could be he uses the repetition of good and the juxtaposition with the bad ideas to show that it was not a normal journey. So he uses the repetition of good and the juxtaposition with bad ideas to show that it was not a normal journey. Yeah. So when you juxtapose an idea, when you juxtapose things, you're putting almost 2 things that are contrasting in nature side by side. So like good bad ideas are put parallel together to actually give actually a picture of that to us, the readers and any audience, that this was not a very pleasant journey. Number two, you could also use the use of the phrases somewhere else shows his desperation. The use of the phrases somewhere else shows his desperation, because now when you are dealing with this question number 3, you are not actually confined to maybe paragraph 1 or paragraph 2, but you're looking at the text in its entirety, so that you bring out how effectively the writer has actually been able to share with us his experiences. That is how he's been able to describe this place using these words and the structures. The use of the short sentence, "I should have known better," gives an ominous feel. Yeah. So I think that comes in paragraph 1, that I should have known better. It means like, there's some test of regret, that I should have known better. There it goes. And you can clearly see it over there. Let me just get the highlighter. Yeah, here it is. Yes, I should have known better. So use of that shows that, there was some level of regret, that he should have thought a little bit better, because probably whatever he met was not what he had actually intended to get. Okay, let me just clear that. Let me see. Yeah, there it goes. Another idea that we could also include here, the description, just taking back to the use of the short sentence, "I should have known better," gives that ominous. Something ominous is something, giving that eerie feeling of danger. Yeah, like I should have known better. It also brings in that taste of regret, that I wish I should have thought a little bit quite different. So it gives that ominous, that sense of, danger that's lacking somewhere, danger that is lacking. Lacking as in Lurking, not Lucky. The description of the choice of Ruranabakwe. What's her name? Ruranabakwe is one of those wonderfully romantic places. Place names and starting points for some of the better journeys suggest some positivity. So Ruranabakwe is actually described here as one of those places that will elicit some romantic feelings. So suggesting, at least there's some positive lexis here, there's some positivity, there's some positive language here that makes this place, describe this place as a place that one will actually, sorry. The use of positive lexis here will suggest that this is one of the places that one will actually look forward to visiting without any iota of doubt. So yes, there's juxtaposition of some good, bad stuff. And then there's some ominous feeling, I wish I had known better. But of course here, when you move down, there's some positive lexis, there's some positive feeling that comes in through the choice of very positive words that comes in romantic places. One of those wonderfully romantic places names, yes, etc. Another descriptive nature here, this dismal heap emphasizes that it is unpleasant. It's unpleasant. It's an eyesore. It's not something that is very attractive to the sight. We also have the use of tricolon to describe the night. He arrives hot, humid, and very black. Tricolon structure, these are words that come in threes. Yes. And sometimes you can say the tripartite structures. You can talk about triads. Yes, so the use of tricolon to describe the night, here are hot, humid, and very black. So this is, apart from the positivity there, this is also another negative lexis that also gives a picture of how this place actually it looks like, or appears, or feels to our narrator. The description of altitude sickness, total weakness, and incapacity, all the disadvantages of being drunk. So this also gives not a very good feeling of his experience as someone who was visiting Ruranabakwe. The use of ellipses suggests there are more horrible effects. So the use of ellipses, remember, it's also good for you as a candidate, for you as a student, for you as someone, and a language enthusiast, to know some of these, some of these structures, some of these features that the writer will use to bring out effectively what he or she wants to tell us. The use of brackets to add additional information. Remember, brackets are also used to, there are more use of brackets. Let's get an example how brackets are used. There we go. Let me just check out. There we go. And then between line 25 to 29, where he says, unfortunately, the driver had no English, but when I showed him my airline ticket, and brackets, probably the wrong one, he seemed to understand. Yeah, so probably the wrong one. So that is additional information. Airline ticket, it could have been the right one or it could have been the wrong one, but it seemed to understand. And then, of course, when you look at line 30, going down in there, 30, 31, 30, 31, 32, is where you say, none of the officials spoke any English, but my taxi driver explained the situation, and this is where it comes. I think so. It's just things. So these are just a position that probably the narrator was thinking, that was running through the mind. So use of brackets here for additional information, and this one you can use this in any other article or material or text as far as analysis. So use of additional information is actually a very good ground, a very good feature that you can use. One can use to bring out that very precise and crisp and very precise and crystal clear description. The use of sudden panic, rushed, bundled suggests that. So this is just a number of words and phrases, and sudden panic, rushed, bundled, so suggests the haste. So this is what I'll call vocabulary or lexis that is synonymous with being, in so much urgency. So the use of sudden panic, rushed, bundled suggests the haste, urgency with which he got onto the plane. So we've got words. We can have words that are grouped in a certain, corpus or certain group. So if I want to have words that show hastiness, here we have sudden panic, rushed, bundled, showing that, you didn't care how you reached, but, you really wanted to get in there, regardless of the situation at hand. Moving on, more features that you could add to get your 10 marks. Yes, so the description of the flight, the display of the flight. So how the flight described, it dipped and swabbed. We also have cold, beautiful valleys. So these are some of the things that you're seeing. So dipped and swabbed. So this gives you a real-time experience of what was happening. And then, of course, the environment is also cold. It's cold, and also, this is actually the sensory imagery, beautiful valleys. So sensory imagery, which I'll also call the optical imagery, is also beautiful valleys because it actually positively affects our sight. Then we have the listing, the list of things it does not like about the rainforest. So this is the listing, and what does he list? The things that he does not like in the rainforest. And we quote some: in your face, in your hair, in your clothes, and under your skin. So the listing of this also helps us to really appreciate the experiences of this narrator. The humorous contrast used to describe Roranabakwe when he first arrived, like one paved road, with the description when he arrives back from the rainforest where the bright lights dazzle just like a city. Yeah, so clearly there was a contrast when he first arrived there, and when he comes back, there's quite a contrast. So contrast, yeah, things that are actually at different paradigms, at different ends. The description of his return flight is also shared with us. Better than I feared. Yes, better than I feared. The description of his return flight. So it is. It was, he had feared at first, but it turned out to be better. Therefore, it alleviated the fear that he had before he took the flight. Or generally, the tone is also humorous, and also the use of the first person throughout. So the story is told from the first person point of view, and of course, this is something that we can clearly look into in depth as we move. So that is some of the points, not limited to whatever we have shared here, that will address this. It will address the 3-mark question, yes, explained. Thirdly, okay, number 4. So I said question number 1, question number 2. Those are explicit questions, and of course they're drawn from text 1 or passage 1. And we have question number 3 drawn from the same text or the same passage, but this one now demands a more in-depth sort of analysis, because this question number 3 is more of an implicit sort of question that requires that type of sifting that we have seen and we have demonstrated. Of course, we shall be delving much into that for for the finest understanding. Question number 4 will move you back to explicit type of questions, but now focusing on passage 2. Question number 4 will move you back to explicit type of question, but focusing now question number 2. So read text 2 in the extra booklet adapted from a blog called Things I'll Tell Any New Traveler. And as I said and I shared with you at the onset, these texts, they are actually linked by the themes. Remember, we just talked about someone traveled to a place called Ranabakwe, and that the experiences that he actually found. And of course, we have this text here is a blog called Things I'll Tell Any Traveler. So it still talks on the theme of traveling. It still talks on the theme of traveling, and of course, it does us no harm to just have a look at how it looks like. And yes, there you go, text 2, Things I'll Tell Any New Traveler, adapted from a blog by Matt Kipnis. So in this passage, the writer, an American, offers advice to people traveling the world for the first time. There's some graphic presentation over there, and this here's hope, fear, excitement. That's how it starts. Hope, fear, excitement. Traveling for first time provided me with a wave of conflicting emotions. When I left to travel the world, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't well traveled. No one I knew had ever done this before. I was young and inexperienced, and I made a lot of basic travel mistakes. It was as if I had a big sign hung over my head that said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Now, with 10 years of travel under my belt, I know better. If I could sit my younger self down before he left for his world trip, I'll give him this advice. Don't be scared. Fear is a powerful deterrent. Taking the leap into the unknown is scary, but you aren't the first person to travel the world. You aren't discovering new continents or exploring uncharted territories. There's a well-worn travel trail out there and people to help guide you along the way. If millions of people can make their way around the world each year, so can you. You may feel scared and nervous, but you're just as capable as anyone else. Warning number 2, don't live by your guidebook. Guidebooks are useful for a general overview of a destination, but you'll never find the latest off-the-beaten-path attraction, bars, or restaurants in them. People are your best resource for up-to-the-minute travel information. Unless a guidebook is digital and updated often, it's probably out of date, so don't live and breathe by it. Travel slow. It can be tempting to try to see it all. With the limited vacation time, we are always trying to squeeze everything in. Rushing through 20 cities in 20 days or 100 countries on your round-the-world trip. In the end, all we have to show for is our photos, stress, and a whirlwind of experiences, but no real knowledge of the places we went. Don't rush your trip. Make time to spend a relaxing day in the park or just sitting in a cafe, people watching. Slow down. It gives you time to drink deep from a culture and take it all in. You don't need a lot of gear. Pack light. You'll have less to carry. But buy a small bag so you aren't tempted to pack everything under the sun. If you truly need something, you can pick it up as you go. Trust me, you won't need as much gear as you think. Get a phone. You'll meet a lot of people on the road who you will want to see again. While Facebook can be handy for staying in touch, it isn't ideal for planning meetups when people are constantly on the move. Did your friends get the message? Will they be there? Who knows? Cheap phones and SIM cards are available worldwide. Invest in one so you can stay in touch with your friends. That way you won't wonder if you were stood up or if your friends just changed their plans and went wrong. Go with the flow. When every day is planned out and there are timetables to follow, you get stressed, very stressed. You rush. And when you plan too much, there's no room to experience the happy accidents of travel. Put some flexibility into your schedule and go with the flow. Plan one or two activities and let the rest of the day happen. It will be more enjoyable and less stressful experience. You'll be surprised by what happens, like when your friend invites you to an island in Thailand and you stay a whole month. Let life unfold. Take extra money. Travel isn't as expensive as you think, but you learn there are always unexpected expenses. Have a financial cushion. No matter how well you budget, you can never plan for all the disaster or itinerary changes. No matter how well you plan, something can always come up and throw your budget into chaos. Take more money than you think you'll need. You'll be happy you did. Be adventurous. I know you don't like heights. I know you don't like sports. And while you'll hurt your tailbone, you won't regret jumping off the boat in the Galapagos. You may have screamed, but you love that canyon swing. Challenge yourself. Take risks. Try new things. You may hate some, but you won't regret any of it. You'll walk away more self-confident. You are not alone. Wherever you go, there's a network of travelers who will be your friends, give you advice or tips, and help you out. They will guide you, point you in the right direction, and be your mentors. You aren't out there on your own. You'll make friends. You'll be okay. Though you are traveling alone, you'll never be alone. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy. So far, so good for text 2. Yeah, so far, so good for text 2. And of course, having that idea, and I say it's good to go through a text at least twice. At least twice. If you're a fast reader, you can take 3. And of course, as you scan for the answers as you move on. So in line 2 to 5. So here's a question that guides you, actually leads you to specific lines. Whoa, what are friendly questions? So in line 2 to 5, the writer describes his feelings traveling for the first time. State one of these feelings. State one. So as I said, questions that go with state, identify, mention, these are very explicit and they don't actually task your mind so much. And it's line 2 to 5. So there's no harm in, let's take a look. Let's take a look at line 2 to 5. And of course, there we go, guys. There we go. Just in a moment. There we go. Line 2 to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there we go. 2 to 5. Traveling for the first time provided me the wave of conflicting emotion. When I left to travel the world, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't well traveled. No one I knew had ever done this before. I was young and inexperienced, and I made a lot of basic travel mistakes. So yeah, there we go. We've redigested that. So in line 2 to 5, the writer described his feelings traveling for the first time. State one of these feelings. So some of these feelings that maybe I could share with you is that he had a wave of conflicting emotions. That could be a point. He didn't know what to expect. That's another point. He made a lot of mistakes. That was another point. So here, there are a number of points, but here the question actually just demands for one. So there we go. So 1 mark. Any of those? 1 mark. So give it your best shot. Number 5, question number 5. Using the section go with the flow, identify 2 pieces of advice the writer gives. Using the section go with the flow. So here you have the of keenness also required. So you go to the text, and of course this text has been demarcated in such a, yes, we have the subtitle or subheadings, subtitle and subheadings that will guide you. And there we go. Where do we find it? We find it in line 41. Yes, line 41 to line 59. Yes. When every day is planned out and there are timetables to follow, you get stressed, very stressed. You rush. And when you plan too much, there's no room to experience the happy accidents of travel. Put some flexibility into your schedule and go with the flow. Plan 1 or 2 activities and let the rest of the day happen. It will be a more enjoyable and less stressful experience. You'll be surprised by what happens, like when your friend invites you to an island in Thailand and you stay at home. Put some flexibility into your schedule and go with the flow. So from that line, go with the flow. Yes, line 45. So What does it say? Sorry for that. So does it say? It says, using section go with the flow, identify two pieces of advice that you can get there. Do not rush. Of course, we go that. Do not rush. Do not plan too much. Experience the happy accidents of travel. And of course, more points. Put some flexibility into your schedule. Go with the flow as it is. Just go with the flow. Go with the current. Plan on 2 activities each day. Let the rest of the day happen. Let life unfold. Yeah. So a very friendly question over here, guiding you. You know, this. I mean, this passage is actually demarcated into some those subheadings that subtitles that actually make it easy for you to identify what the examiner needs. Yes, and there you have your 2 marks. You hit it. It's like a jackpot of a mark, you know, jackpot of a question. There you have your 2 marks, and you are happy. Then we move to question number 6. Question number 6 is the same. It behaves the same with question number 3, and here now a lot of insight is needed, a lot of analysis is needed, and a lot of care is needed as you actually tackle this question number 6. So question number 3 and question number 6, these are twins. Of course, these are twins, probably not Siamese twins, but these are twins. Their demands are just the same. Explain how the writer presents his advice to the new traveler. So here, question number 3, we were looking at the first passage 1 or text 1, and question number 6, we are looking at the second passage that we've just read. So explain how the writer presents his advice to new travelers. You should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotations. So the presentation here is done through language and the structure and the structural effects that the text actually offers. So some of this, of course, we read the text, and I've said there's no harm in actually going through the text once more. The 3 single word sentences at the beginning, hope, full stop, fear, full stop, excitement, sums up the range of possible experiences. Yeah. So structurally, like in terms of syntax, you can see the sentences are very simple, and hope, fear, excitement, all these syntactically here sum up the range of possible experience. Number 2, there's use of subheadings. Clearly, that text is very, very friendly. So we have use of subheadings, as you can see, to guide anyone who wants to, you know, particularly if you want to focus on a particular area, you need to get more information from a particular area. Particular area. Clearly, you can see that the subheadings will also guide. So this it makes even the presentation, of ideas to the travelers very, very easy, and it comes out at more of an instructional and a text that advises those who are venturing or heading into travel expeditions for the first time. So it makes it very, very profitable for them to interact with this text. The use of first-person experiences in the opening section. So yeah, so this is actually anecdotal, because you are not reading, you are not actually engaging someone third party, but this first person experience, and therefore he or she sharing with us the experiences. The writer also uses inclusive pronouns, inclusive you, we throughout. So this inclusivity, like you are not alone. The writer uses inclusivity, inclusive pronouns, you, we throughout. This engages you. You know, it makes you not feel alone. You know, because it bring that spirit of teamwork when people are even traveling together. Then there's the reassuring and advisory tone in the text. So the text is actually advisorial. It actually advises so much. So, and this could also, when we talk about the function of a text, we could also say the text is, it meets the advisorial nature, because it advises. Function-wise, it also advises. This use of metaphor, leap into the unknown, emphasizes the nervousness that new travelers might feel. Yeah, so use of language, there very figurative sort of language, leap into use of metaphor, leap into the unknown. Yes, emphasizes use the nervousness, a sense of, not being very sure of what to meet, a sense of uncertainty that comes out of there. The comparison of a 21st century travel experience with those of early explorers like I quote, aren't discovering new continents or exploring uncharted territories, well-worn travel, trail. So those are some of the comparisons that the writer here has used, and it brings out, and we're able to share and appreciate the feelings here. The use of figures and statistics to stress how unrealistic and unsatisfying travel experience can be. 20 cities in 20 days, 100 countries, etc. Those also add to the excitement of this. The metaphor whirlwind of experiences suggests how hectic travel can be. So the whirlwind of experience also suggests how hectic travel can be. So this is metaphorically, you can see the language here uses metaphor to help us share and appreciate these feelings here. The advice about getting a phone, invest in one, this suggests how hectic travel can be and sometimes how unpredictable and how handy this phone can come into use. Then we have also, in terms of structure, we have the use of short sentences. Yes, and an example is don't rush your trip, slow down, you see. So structurally, you can, and when you're giving advice, of course, it's foolhardy to use those long type of sentences. And this one, it becomes very imperative. Don't rush, slow down. So this one actually rubber stamps the fact that this is an advisorial and is a text that actually gives advice. The description of unexplained travel, happy accidents, etc. Shows how unpredictable some of this traveling can be. The metaphor have a financial cushion, suggests how comforting having extra cash can be. Cushion, something that cushions you, something that actually shields you from that hard knocks, the hard knocks that can come unexpectedly if you fall down. So financial cushion here, cushion there is actually used to protect you from any eventuality that will demand some financial redress. The juxtaposition of screamed screamed with but you love. So there's screamed going along but you love tells readers that the challenges are not bad experiences, but they are worth it. So you scream it but you loved it, almost oxymoronic or oxymoron. The tricolon, they will guide you, point you in the right direction, and be your mentors, reinforces the reassurance being offered. The comforting and reassuring tone in the last section, you'll make friends, you'll be okay. There's also very positive lexis here. Very positive lexis here that, okay, despite all this, there's the positive side of it. You'll make friends, you'll be okay. The final tricolon, so take a deep breath, relax and enjoy. And then, of course, yeah, just guides you that, like, don't worry, amidst all this, take a deep breath, relax and enjoy. So bringing that sort of relaxation, that is element of coziness, yes, and of course we get it from this. So, and of course there are a number of imperatives. This being an adversarial, a traveling text that advises those people who are venturing for the first time. Actually, it becomes good, and it's mandatory that imperatives are used, because imperatives are like commands, and you're traveling, venturing into travel for the first time, so you don't need to get things wrong. So those are some of the highlights and some of the points that one could use, and you could use to address this question number 6. So question number 6 winds up. It actually winds up. Text 2 or text B. And I would wish to stop there, and of course prepare also, like, to look at the need for question number 7. Question number 7 is a comparative. It's a question that demands your understanding of both text 1 and text 2. So it's an amalgamation, it's a hybrid, of text 1 and text 2. And therefore, it's something that we're going to look at, and we're going to look at it as we continue addressing these pertinent areas on how to guide you on tackling some of these questions, especially for language enthusiasts, students who just want to prepare for English, and any student who is preparing, and a candidate that is preparing for the IGCSE curriculum. So I would say that you keep tabs here, Keep watching, and of course, in our next video, we're going to talk about how to address question number 7, English B, for the IGCSE. We continue looking at English language B, and as I promised in my previous presentation, that we shall be looking at question number 7, which is comparison of texts. And this is a 15-mark question whereby we look at the two texts, and I'll say here in terms of the language and also in terms of the structure. So we look at the structural features as well as the language or linguistic features that are represented in both texts. I would also like to say that, for example, when we are looking at text, it is good and imperative for a student or a candidate to know that a text could be compared in terms of the audience, a text could be compared in terms of purpose, and of course, purpose and the audience will determine other things like the language used, the stylistic devices actually employed, and so forth and so on. So, first and foremost, look at the text. What is the purpose for the text in question? What is the function? What objective, what end does it aim to achieve and arrive at? Now, when we look at question number 7 of this very, very paper that we've been looking at, let's compare how the writers of text 1 and text 2 present their ideas and perspectives about traveling. And of course, you're told to support your answer with examples from both texts. So there we go. If I may just have a look. Just have a look at the paper. Sorry, the question. That is question number 7. There it goes. So text 1, we can see it presents a negative view, a negative viewpoint from the beginning. It wasn't a good journey. So we can see what we call negative lexis. We can see negative presentation, that it wasn't a good journey. So you can see the disposition here of the writer, of the author of this, tells us it wasn't a good journey. So that's a negative, stance that is taken. And also text 1, we could say that apart from the lexis being negative, it also presents the destination negatively. For example, and here we said, use some quotations from the text. Final jumping off place, heart of darkness, dismal heap, these are negative examples that actually accentuate that point of negative disposition that I'm trying to look at. We also see that it identifies the mistakes he made. So text 1 identifies the mistakes that he made. Left planning my journey much too late, for example. So brings in a situation whereby it's like the speaker or the writer was not so much prepared. So it comes out as, points out the speaker or the writer here or the character involved as someone who is not so much prepared. There's also use of text 1 uses negatives or negative connotations, if we may say so, uses negative connotation to stress that he did not have a good time. So there are negative language, pockets of language or packets of language here to show that he didn't have a good time. So couldn't, such was I couldn't, no sign, no English, not the one, so nothing is no. So negativities are also so much abundant in text 1. There's also use of descriptive, description here of the plane. So you could say that descriptive language is also used here. Ancient and pilot, for example, aging Air Force officer, to show how dangerous the trip is, because you have an ancient and aging pilot, you have aging Air Force officer. So it's not something that actually inspire a lot of confidence. So text one does not inspire some safety confidence due to the choice of the descriptions that have actually been used here. Text one presents the flight as dangerous. For example, you get terminals dipped and swabbed between the mountains. Planes like ours have a history of finding their final resting place. So there's danger there. It actually shows the plane flying and almost like teetering on the brink of accident. There's lack of assured safety. There's actually some positivity in the experience of the narrator when he uses words such as enjoyed and relief. In terms of point of narratives or point of narration, it is told in first person point of view, and you can clearly establish that by such pronouns like I. So it's told in the first person point of view. So when something, a story or a narrative is told in the first person point of view, it actually gives it that credibility, that authenticity. There's use of negative language, as I have said, prevalent, and there's a prevalent use of negative language, which actually gives a sense of foreboding, a sense of danger, a sense of premonition, if you may wish to say so. The use of humor is also noted. So there are also pockets of humor, just to break the tension that is so much inherent in text one. So there is use of humor, which is also appreciated. Now, when we go on the flip side, we also look at text two. So how does text two compare or contrast with text one? So text two starts with personal comment. There's a personal comment, which we also call a personal anecdote. There's uses subheadings. There's actually use of subheadings to identify useful information. And it also develops a reassuring and advisory tone. It develops a reassuring and advisory tone, offers positive advice if millions of people, yes, and so forth and so on, offers positive advice. Text two offers advice to take time to enjoy the experience. Don't rush your trip, for example. Mentions the benefits of useful technology. Offers advice to take time to enjoy the experiences. Like, for example, don't rush your trip. So it also comes out as a piece of advice to those who want to travel. Mentions the benefit of useful technology. Get a phone, for instance. It also suggests not over planning. For example, put some flexibility into your schedule. So those examples shows the benefit of planning, of not over planning. It text two endorses adventure. When they say challenge yourself, so it actually permits and endorses, it allows for adventure. It challenges the reader to try adventure. There's also use of direct address you, which engages the readers. That is what I call synthetic personalization, whereby it actually appeals to you, the reader, and personalizes the request in that, and that makes it actually highly persuasive. There's generous use of imperatives to give advice. So imperatives, must, should, yes, so to give advice. Text two, largely, we see it has a positive approach. As when you looked at text one, it was full of negativity. Text two has a positive approach. Points of comparisons. Text 1 is entertaining and humorous. Text 2 is advisory and informative. Text 1 is aimed at the general public text. Text 2 is aimed at first-time travelers, possibly young people. Text 1 is a personal experience of one journey. Text 2 is an accumulation of experiences. Text 1 presents traveling as unpleasant. Text 2 presents traveling as interesting and a positive experience. So you can see those points of congruency and departure. Positive experiences from text 1 is about a short journey. Text 2 advises to travel slow. Both texts are based on the writer's experiences. So we have almost more of anecdotal experiences here. Both texts are about traveling. And of course, you can also see that both texts clearly convey the writer's perspective and experiences. So by and large, dear candidates, when you are looking at a comparison of text, remember to look at the themes that are actually ingrained in the text. Look at the language. Look at the structure. Is it told from first-person point of view or second-person point of view? The gender of the narrators or the gender of the characters involved, is one told from a male point of view or a female point of view? Does even one have a title and the other one doesn't have title? Is it organized in subheading and subtitles? Because these are just general advice that I'm also giving and issuing in relation to when you are given a text to compare and contrast. Structurally, that in terms of the syntax, do we have a text that prevalently has short structured sentences, long structured sentences? In terms of paragraphing, do we have short paragraphs, long paragraphs? Is text 1 brought in a formal or informal style? Is it uses a lot of colloquial expressions, idiomatic expressions? Is there a type of stylistic device that is actually so much employed generously in any of the text? So it should not be a major problem per se when you are looking at the way texts are compared. So that's a mandatory question, and it's actually a 15-mark question, bringing into focus the two texts that you'll be given in as part of your reading, that is text 1 and text 2. So these discussions we'll be continuing this discussion in our subsequent videos. So make sure you like and you actually subscribe for you to enjoy the premium services that we're offering for you in preparation for your IGCSE examinations. Now, after dispensing with section A, which has climaxed with the comparison text, there's section B, that is reading and writing. So here you are told to use ideas from both text 1 and text 2 in the extract booklets to answer this question. So this calls into focus application of the information that you actually gathered in both text 1 and the text 2. And in this question here, you can see you have been asked to give a talk to your peers about traveling. Write the text of your talk. So it should include the positive aspect of traveling, the problem that might be encountered, advice for travelers about what to do and not to do. Think carefully about the purpose of your talk and the audience for whom it is intended. So the bullet points, 3 so far, it is advisable for you to address those 3 bullet points. And I usually tell students that, okay, first before you start writing, just generate the points. Generate the points first, because once you generate the points, which is part of your planning, it becomes very easy when you start to write. So you have been asked to give a talk to your peers. So if it's a talk, then it takes the format of a speech. It takes the format of a speech. And who is the audience? The audience is your peers. So the language is moderate because you are talking to your peers. It's not an ultra formal sort of speech or talk. So it is the people that you are familiar, your peers, and because it's a talk, then it takes the format of a speech. So this is something very important that we should look at your writing, and we look at it and we see this is a speech, not a letter or not an interview or not a report. So it should have all the qualities of speech, with the introduction, with the body, and of course with the conclusion brought to us or brought out in the correct tenses, or the correct tense for this matter. So one, as I said, please generate your points. So the positive aspects of traveling. So here, as I said, a suitable register for a talk to peers should be adopted. So in the form of a speech. So a suitable register, like choice of language, choice of diction, and the vocabulary here should be adopted for this, sort of writing. Some of the points could be, as we are seeing here, over here. Just let me scroll down a bit. I don't know if you're able to see this or it's problematic. Yeah, some of the points could include, but not limited to, the following: the positive aspect of traveling. So, because we are generating our points, so we look at our bullet, the positive aspects of traveling, and here we get like getting away from work. That is one positive aspect. So just generate it. Because we also see helpful locals, beautiful scenery, the contrast between the jungle and the towns, yeah, positivity, the culture, being able to enjoy the culture, meeting the different types of people, the places visited, of course, could be varied, hence offering those the novelty or the newness of situation. The place visited, I've said, the new challenges and experiences. And of course, as you travel, sometimes you just don't meet mean people, but you meet other travelers who you'll travel with. So you generate bullets points for that first bullet. Second bullet is the problems that might be encountered. So here we also, some of the problems that you may encounter: lack of time, that is rushing through your programs and preparations; dangerous travel arrangements as exhibited in the text; too many airports, like to catch up or to connect; altitude sickness for those who are flying; darkness, sometimes no torch as exhibited in the no torch or source of light or flashlight; problems with the local language. We can experience, one could experience language barrier. All the planes, okay, like almost the ramshackle one that the writer was talking about. Dangerous flights. Of course, we have creepy crawlies, deserted airports, being nervous, out-of-date guidebooks, books that have never been updated, and therefore they have informations that might not seem very helpful at a given time. Too much luggage to carry around, not getting messages from friends because of network issues, and just being cut out of civilization. So far that is, you've generated points for bullet 2. And as I said, we continue advice for travelers about what to do and not to do. So what are some of the points that we will actually incorporate in our bullet 3? So some advice will be like, give yourself enough time then it's good to plan. Learn a little of the language, basic language. You should learn a little bit. The greetings, asking for directions, etc., etc. Take advice from other more experienced travelers. Enjoy the culture also. Do not pack too much. Do not pack too much unnecessary stuff that you don't need. Buy a cheap phone. Yes, buy a cheap phone that could also store charge for long, so that you don't run the risk of plunging yourself in darkness. And yes, do not overplan. Take more money than you think you will need. Just because sometimes you budget and some contingencies arrive, and unplanned for situation could arise. So you should also take advantage of the support offered by fellow travelers. and of course enjoy the adventure. So having generated your points, then now to gel all these points, now it's a matter of your language. So we look at the quality of your language using connectives and all that to write it in a flowing way. So I think the gist of the matter is, once you have done with your planning, and then it becomes very easy. It becomes very easy for you now to gel this together, to knit them together, and therefore you bring out a format, you bring out a form of a speech, of a good speech that has the introduction, that has, in the body is where now we have all these points that we've talked about, and of course your parting shot, which is the conclusion. So it is just advisable that we do know you do have at your fingertips the format. You have to know the format of different genres, of different types of writing that you are actually advised to do. Yeah, so this part B it summarizes that. It's also like, we call it also summary writing in some instances, to just bring this, and it's more of what we call transactional sort of writing, because you will need to do a speech in live, and therefore here we are, and of course we've been directed on what to do based on some points that have been actually gathered from the text. Then section C, when we go to section C is about writing. This is what we call composition. So, and the words that you are, here you don't have to retell the events from text 1 or text 2. So here is a freestyle. It's a very open forum. You don't have to retell any of from text 1 or text 2. So, and you always have 3 questions. Yeah, you always have 3 questions. Yeah, so one could be discursive. The other one is actually some imaginative writing. And the other one is descriptive. So, and in our current paper, the paper we're looking at, the question 9 was, we only regret the chances we do not take. We only regret the chances we do not take. To what extent do you agree with this? Yeah, so to what extent? So it's either way, to a greater extent or to a lesser extent, and therefore, you should bring out your discussion. It's more of a debate in terms of writing. So please support your stand with points. So support if you agree, yes. If you don't agree, tell us why. So nobody will be demonized or penalized for agreeing or not disagreeing. If you agree, please agree with the points. If you disagree, please disagree with points. If you want to look at both sides, but give us a stand. Yes. Looking at both sides, this is where do we stand. So number 10, write a story, and the story is always true or imaginary, entitled Doing the Right Thing. So this is just imaginary, creative sort of writing, doing the right thing. So the story could be real or imaginary. So here, using language, those stylistic devices, all manner of them, proper sentence structures, punctuations, varied lexes or vocabularies, just trying to make your story to be as interesting as possible. And lastly, describe your favorite performance. So you realize that descriptive writing is also a part of this question. So section C is either you're doing a discursive or argumentative, you are doing a narrative here, or you're doing a descriptive. So when you describe, how do you describe? Do you appeal to our senses? Are we able to see? Are you telling or showing, or are you showing or telling? So are you able to appeal to our sensory touches, sense of hearing, sense of sight, sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of smell? Are we able to see clearly what you're talking about? Yeah, so In compositions, there are those three areas, and of course, I always advise students that along the way you choose a question that favors you, that you know where your strength lies. And we shall be discussing in our subsequent videos as you subscribe and also like what we are telling us and give us ideas and views extensively. We shall be discussing extensively these areas, the compositions, like how do you do a good argumentative or discursive essay or composition, how do you do a good imaginary essay, how do you do a good descriptive essay. Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, that is how it is. And of course, you need to watch out and look out for our upcoming videos that we are going to unleash and release very, very soon, as we help each other and we help you to prepare adequately for the forthcoming IGCSE exams. So until next time, thank you. I've been your teacher, Mr. Dan Odongo.